For anybody that doesn't understand social anxiety, also referred to as social phobia, it can seriously ruin your life. And today I want to tell you my story about it. So it goes by a lot of names, and I've had it for as long as I can remember. It's hard to make these videos for me. It's hard to make phone calls. It's hard to go out in public a lot of times. It's hard to meet new people. I keep my hair long, so I have something to kind of hide behind. Like when I've had short hair in the past, I feel exposed. So yeah, it's very difficult to have social phobia. It can ruin your life, and to anybody that has it, I sympathize with you because man, like it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I have a hard time, like if I'm walking, going through crosswalks where there's traffic, like having people see me, and just being like a focal point. Like that's something I really have a hard time with, is being a focal point in something where others might be looking at me. And like birthdays, if somebody calls for, I'll like just short of kill somebody if they call. Not that far, not that extreme, but I do get pretty upset if somebody tells like a restaurant that it's my birthday and they're gonna bring me a cake. That's no bueno. That's no bueno at all. It's very hard. I've had to do some things in my life that have been hard too, and kind of as I reflect back on social phobia and what it's cost me, it's cost me quite a bit because there's a lot of things that I would have liked to do had it not been for this social anxiety. A lot of things that I would have experienced. Job opportunities would have been different. Women that I might have went and talked to. All kinds of things that would have been different, but have been hindered because of this social anxiety. At a point, I did attempt to combat it using medication. I used Zoloft and Klonopin, which worked, but unfortunately, the Zoloft caused like a bipolar type reaction in me, to where I was out of control. I was so depressed, and then just blowing money like crazy, and didn't want to sleep. So obviously, that was not something I could continue with. But other than that, there's only been a few things that I have found that actually help, and they're all using like drugs. I think the reason I used drugs so heavily in the past and started drinking, I started drinking at 12. I used to make a thermos of booze, like different alcohols my parents had in a liquor cupboard, to take to school with me, to sip throughout the day, to get through the day. Not like I was a social person either. That was just to like maintain and like hide and go to class. It was bad. It still is bad. And I notice it does get worse if I isolate. Once I've isolated myself, which I tend to do because A, I'm an introvert, B, I have social anxiety. Isolating myself, I get into a pattern to where it's hard to reacclimate in a way by getting out around people. I walk daily, but when I walk, and by daily I mean at night when nobody can see me and when nobody's out. I hate having to make eye contact with people when I'm walking, to talk to them and say, hey, or whatever you're supposed to say. I have no idea because I have social anxiety. I don't know how to behave. But you see these people, and my thing is usually I have headphones in, earphones, so that I'm not approachable, and I'll look at my phone or something when I'm walking by them so they won't. I look busy. I don't have to interact. It's very difficult. I have a few experiences too that are like a social phobiac, if that's the word. Their worst nightmare, which was one experience I had was recently. I went to a Christian men's encounter, and I had to, after we got home, the family members of everybody that had went, which was like 70 people, all their family was there, so everybody brought a few family members or whatever, and they told me I had to go up and speak in front of these people on a microphone because it was a big auditorium. It was probably a couple hundred at least, if not more. the panic, the fear. I wish I would have just died. I really wish. Just give me a heart attack. I'm good. I'm done. Roll me out of here instead of me having to go up there and talk. And if not, if my mom and my friends weren't there, I would have like fully bailed out. I would have just been like, we're good. We're leaving. But I didn't. I went up and spoke, and it was so hard for me. And I remember just going like, don't look out into the audience at all. So I just kind of took a brief glance towards the end, but most of the time I was just like had blurred vision, just staring off at the walls. Like I was making eye contact, yet I wasn't. I didn't see anybody because I didn't want to see anybody's reaction. I think with social phobia, one of the things we worry about is that how people perceive us, how they look at us, and that's a lot of the fear. I think, at least for me, of people judging me. I'm not really like a judgy person. I don't make judgments about people, but I guess I can see things in people. I can see emotions a lot of times in people and feel like they're feeling. So maybe that's what I'm trying to cover up, and I'm afraid of exposing that people are going to read how deep my emotions are or whatever. But I do fear that people will, see things in me and make judgment calls about me. Another example of my social anxiety, and I think this is related to social anxiety, but I used to be a writer. I used to write sales copy. And I remember writing and throwing it out, writing and throwing it out, writing and throwing it out. And my wife at the time just telling me, like, just give it to him. It's good. Like, what are you talking about? I'd be like, it's not good. It's horrible. And so she talked me into, like, give it to them. And if they send it back, then you'll have to rewrite it. But just give it to them, because I would have deadlines, and I would pass up the deadline because I'd be so afraid of giving them something I thought was horrible. So I didn't get any returns. People were like, no, this is great. This is just what we were looking for. I don't know what my problem is. I don't know if it was social anxiety or something else, low self-esteem, but it's difficult. It cost me a lot of time trying to be perfect in my writing, never reaching that level that I had in my head and I thought would not be judged poorly. So that was hard. I had another job where I was a telemarketing like floor manager. Somehow, like, I have a big fear of talking on the phone to people. I will on occasion, but people I don't know, like, and I'm first getting to know, it's hard for me. It's difficult. I very rarely do it. I kind of just do it in special circumstances. But, um, I was a telemarketing guy for a while. I did telemarketing. I was really good at it, actually, surprisingly. But I did telemarketing, and that was hard. That was really rough, as you can imagine, making phone calls. But then they stepped it up a notch, made it even harder when they asked me if I wanted to be a manager. And my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, and I had just had a baby. So I wanted to make more money, hoping that she could quit her job because she worked in the evenings. We didn't get to see each other much. So my hope was to pull in money by taking this managerial job, and that way she wouldn't have to work. So I stepped up and did it knowing full well what it meant. And I had an 18-person team, and primarily my job throughout the day, there was like 3 or 4 hour shifts, I forgot which, but I would walk around to people and talk to them and encourage them. I'd tell people to stop taking phone calls for a minute. And usually I would just chat to them one on one, which I was fine with, but I would chat to these people and find out how their day's going or whatever, just kind of talk to them. And I really was good at it. I was really good at it. My sales were the top out of like 5 different teams. But the problem was, every time before, like at the beginning of the shift, before we brought them into the phone room, there was like this break room where everybody would sit. They would line up before that. So I would have to go in there with other teams sitting in there too. So instead of my 18-person team, there was like 50 people in the room, maybe more. And I would have to fire them up. I would have to give them some kind of motivational thing. And some people were clowns and this and that. And I remember just going in there going, this is hard. Like, I have to speak in front of a crowd 3 times a day because there was 3 shifts I ran. And I remember I finally stopped doing it. I rebelled and just would bring the people into the phone room. But the owner of the company heard it one day, heard me just go, all right, my team, let's go, and brought him in. Got upset about it, I remember, and told the boss, the whole floor manager of the whole place, to have a talk with me. And when he told me, I'm like, well, then I'll just quit. I'm not going to keep doing that. I can't keep doing that. And he tried to talk me out of quitting, but at that point, I was just like, you know what? Like, If that's what you guys are expecting, I can't perform that way. So I lost that opportunity. It was a good paying job. I made good money for back then, but I walked away because with social anxiety, it's too hard sometimes. It's just, whew, man, the opportunities, like I said, the opportunities and the stupid things I've done trying to cover it up or trying to avoid it, trying to avoid interaction. Uh, Panic attacks too, because I've been out, in situations that could kick off a panic attack for me. And that's hard. I mean, that's like worst case scenario for somebody with social phobia because the last thing you want to do is have people have something embarrassing happen to you in public. I think like that's top on the list of things you do not want to happen. And there I am having these panic attacks I can't control because I'm in a social situation. But yeah, I would have to drink a lot. Not, I don't anymore, so that's a problem. I do use a kratom on occasion if I need to do something socially intensive. Obviously, I can't use it every time I go out though. I would be on it on the daily. So yeah, it makes life hard for sure. And it's social anxiety is something I think we all have to battle with. But I mean, I don't think anybody really cares to public speak. Maybe they do. Maybe there's some. I'm sorry. Maybe Tony Robbins does or something. But I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. But mine is to the extreme end. If you're familiar with the Myers Briggs, I'm an INFP. I don't know if it has anything to do with being an INFP, but it's intense for me. It's an intense thing. I think another thing I always fear is like saying the wrong thing or like doing something embarrassing. Like I said, like stumbling over, tripping on your shoelace or whatever it might be, just looking like an idiot. And I tend to be a little clumsy, so that could be a problem. And the other factor that weighs in is I'm 6'5". I have long hair. I must kind of look weird, but and just kind of stand out anyways because of my height, and then the long hair probably adds to it. But man, like I said, these are my curtain blinds. Like I can just kind of hide behind them, and I'm good to go. So it's been hard. The way I've been working on it lately, though, is by trying to continue with exposure, by trying to be out in public, trying to get out there here and there and keep myself exposed to the world because I know from the past that when I stop doing that, I start to shut down. I start to shut down. It's harder to go back out. The other thing I've been doing as a Christian, I pray, and I know that God can change our hearts. And I know that God would not want me as a Christian to not be speaking to people about my faith. So it's been a hindrance. If I'm not able to tell people about my faith or to help them or to be, serving people as a Christian, then I'm not living out my faith. So it's been difficult. I've kind of come to a crossroads because becoming a Christian 2 years ago and then further getting into it to where I go to church regularly now, so I'm meeting new people all the time. I'm talking to people. I joined a group, like a study group, a men's encounter group that I do on Thursday nights. So having to talk to people too, I get spent because talking to people just drains my energy. It's like you're on. I just feel like I have to be on and ready to go. So it's very hard, but I've been trying to just expose myself more to it and praying for God through the Holy Spirit to change my heart, to make it easier, I guess, to kind of die to self, like if I look at myself as important, maybe, then I'm going to have this fear. Whereas if I see myself as less and don't really care about me so much, maybe that's the key to having this social anxiety go away. I don't know. I meditate on it a lot. I pray about it a lot. It has improved. Slowly, though, as I pray and as God reveals new things to me that He tells me about, like the dying to self thing. But I feel like there's something there, and I'm not exactly sure why, but maybe if I held myself in less, like, just, didn't care, then I wish I had that attitude of, I just don't care. I don't care what people think. But I do, unfortunately, and that makes these videos hard. But this is a shout out to all you social anxiety, social phobiacs out there. I hear you. I know your struggle. I know it's real. And if there's any way I can help, if you want to reach out, I don't think many people will because you're all social phobia people. So, but if you want to, if you want somebody to talk to about it, I do understand. On a side note, a different note than this, I'm starting a program called Backpacks and Bibles, and my goal is to get backpacks that contain a Bible with, backpack, Bible, essential items for homeless people. So I'm trying to get this program started and asking for people's help with donations so that I can begin this program. I'd like to film it for future videos and show you guys what I am doing with the money you have donated. So please consider donating. I have a GoFundMe account down below. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to donate there to my ministry. But that's it for now. Like the video if you enjoyed it, please. Comments are welcome. And until next time, guys, God bless.